This time, let us look at Luke chapter 24. It's the final chapter in the Gospel of Luke, the book of Luke, and we'll wrap up our look at Luke. But after this segment, we are going to have another 2 segments, and I'm going to spend just a little bit of time in the book of Acts. So take your mobile device, take your computer, take your Bible, and join with me here in Luke chapter 24. We're going to be looking at 2 verses, Luke 24 verse 27 and Luke 24 verse 44. Let's go down and look at verse 27. Beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he, being Jesus, interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. We've spent our entire time looking at how Jesus is using both the law and the prophets, the Torah and the Nevi'im, to do his ministry. Now, if you are a believer, Jesus has been put into the grave, he's been resurrected, and now he is saying, these things concern myself. So this is a different type of use of the Torah and the prophets than he had been using. But this is important because he is saying that there are 2 witnesses. So it would be the law and the prophets, and then of course it would be his resurrection, would be a bodily resurrection, which would prove the Pharisees' teachings of the resurrection and also solidify that there is a resurrection and testify to the prophecy that he gave about himself. But we are still concerned that Jesus is using the law and the prophets. Talked in this verse as Moses, which is known as the Torah, which is 5 books of Moses. And this is important because these things in this verse 27 are called the scriptures. This is how they were referred to at that time. So if you're reading over here, let's say in Timothy or Titus, or you're reading in Galatians or Peter or something along those lines, and they're talking about the scriptures, this is to what they are referring, this body of work. Look down at verse 44. Still the King James. He, being Jesus, said to them, these are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled. Now, I have mentioned the 3 sections of the Tanakh: the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, the law, the prophets, and the writings. I have made mention in other places that Psalms begins the section that's called the writings. Now, what's important is that those who study canon history and how the Bible is put together, they will cite Luke 24 verse 44 as one of the oldest proofs or textual references that we have for a canon. So let me show them to you. This one here is the Jewish Study Bible, and it does not have any New Testament writings in it. It only has Genesis through Chronicles, which is divided according to the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms, because this body of work has the Psalms begin the writing section. Now, this one, and that was a translation from the Hebrew into English with commentary. This one here, though, is simply a Hebrew Bible, and it means everything that you open up, and it's Hebrew. So this is important, and it gives keyword studies and gives you English definitions at the bottom. And when you get into this Hebrew Bible, though, while it has the law and the prophets in the same order, it goes into the Psalms section. It has 7 books that have different orders. I don't know why. The compiler, though, put them in different orders. So those first 7 books in this Psalm section for this Hebrew Bible are in a slightly different order. But what we are having here is, again, the testimony of what Bible these people were using. And this is going to become essential to how we interpret the book of Acts, because I'm going to show over there that they're using the scriptures, which would be the law of Moses, the prophets, and the writings, which include the first book of Psalms. They're using these things to prove that Jesus has risen and that he is the anointed. So this is an important dialogue. This helps us when we are in the New Testament. We are 2,000 years after these people's belief, after their work, and if we're believing Jesus, we go into the New Testament and reread from Matthew to Revelation, and we read about all this important stuff, and we take most of our faith from that. That is not where these people were taking their faith. Their faith was from the Tanakh, which is the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim. And they used that in order to teach Jesus. So this is a wildly different concept that I've only learned here in the last few years, going back to about 2008, really solidifying it and coming into thoughts on this. But it is important, because if I want to know why Paul wrote the way he wrote, then I need to understand where he was on a time frame. If I need to understand Jesus more, I understand his context. And as I was studying the history and the context, all these little pieces start putting themselves together, and it builds a slightly different picture than what I was given. That doesn't mean the picture that I was given was wrong. It just means it was incomplete. And so these things have helped me have a greater understanding of what I'm reading in the New Testament and its outcome. So join me on the next two segments, and we will highlight some things from the book of Acts and hopefully answer a little bit of a question. Well, now that you said we got all this information about the Old Testament, what do we do about it?